Thanks so much for listening to No Lions Here with me, Big Panda. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Lions Here. My name is Big Panda, and I'm a recovering sex addict. Welcome back to the show. Before we jump into it today, I do want to give a shout out to my sponsor for the show and this episode, Begin Again Institute. If you or anyone you know is suffering from sex or porn addiction, definitely go check them out. Their information will be in the description. This is where I got my recovery started. The jumpstart that I needed to my recovery started with Begin Again Institute. And they really, truly did help me begin again with a new lease on life. So definitely go check them out. Big fan of what they're doing. And just grateful to have them still supporting me, after all this time. So definitely want to give a shout out to them. Back in the studio, it's been an interesting ride. Let's just say that with life lately. It's one of those things is I feel like I'm off the recording schedule. I'm off the posting schedule. Not trying to like beat myself up for that. But I haven't been sticking to the schedule. I've just been kind of, and I've shared on here before, just kind of like the motivation around, I want to do the podcast. I know that is one thing that is constant. It's just, it's hard for me sometimes to make the time because, my capacity right now. What I love about capacities is that they ebb and flow and they change, right? Like, and I've talked about capacities before on here, but if I'm looking to be honest with myself, and invest in that honesty pillar that I believe is so important in recovery, it's that I have to ask myself, what's my capacity for this right now? And know that whatever my capacity is, that's okay. And that is subject to change. And that I'm not stuck. Say my capacity right now for the podcast is at a 4, a 4 out of 10. I don't like round numbers. I'm gonna laugh at this, but Dave Portnoy in his One Bite, pizza reviews, has definitely skewed my perception of anybody giving round numbers. So for the sake of things, and let me stick to that. My capacity for the podcast right now is a 4.3, right? That's okay. And that's subject to change. It's not a 0, right? It's not, hey, I'm done with the podcast. I truly don't ever think that I'll ever be there, a 0. But it's a 4.3. So, okay, I'll do the best that I can with it. I know I'll record. And actually, I got a guy coming on next week. We're going to talk some steps and some step work, which I'm actually really excited. I've been wanting to talk step work on here for some time. Yeah, it's I got to ask myself, right? Let me be honest with myself and just, yeah, man, my capacity for this isn't where I would like it to be. However, it is where it is. And, I got to be honest with myself in that and know that this will ebb and flow. And there's some things that are kind of on the horizon that I'm kind of working towards. It's what we'll kind of get into this episode, is just kind of like where I've been. And, I love being able to sit down and do this and just get current with everybody. And no, unfortunately, there's going to be some things that I can't talk about right now because there's some things that are kind of up in the air that have to do with work and some conversations that I've had around that I can't really disclose on here just yet. I will be able to, at some point in time later on down the road. That's definitely fueled. I had a hockey game last week. Everybody knows I'm a big hockey player, man. I love playing hockey. It's just so much fun, man. It's just so great for me. So I had a hockey game last weekend, and we lost. Now, it was a very frustrating loss, very frustrating. And I remember I called Jeff, my sponsor, after playing. It had been a couple days since him and I caught up. And, I called him after the game, and I was just kind of unloading a little bit. I didn't realize the level of frustration that I had going on inside of me until I got on the phone with him. At first it started with the game, right? We lost the game. And, I've lost plenty of hockey games in my life. plenty of hockey games, and I'm gonna lose hockey games. I know that does not determine my worth. However, this loss in particular was very frustrating for me. It wasn't that it was any different. It wasn't for any higher stakes. It was literally the first game of the season in this new session that I just started up. So there wasn't anything on the line. I just found myself really, really frustrated with this game. And, it was one of those things where, I'm a firm believer of it's not the things that are right in front of us that are causing or showing us the emotions or feelings that are underneath. I believe that those feelings and emotions are there. What it takes is the situation right in front of us to bring those out in us. And so I really got a chance to look at, wow. So it's not the game. I'm actually really frustrated with where my life isn't and where my life is. And I am really frustrated with what's going on with me. And that I feel like I'm in this waiting period, and I've been in this waiting period. They say that God, your higher power, gives you 3 answers. Yes, no, and I put the 3 up before I even did it. Yes, no, and maybe. Or sorry, yes, no, and wait. I apologize. Yes, no, and wait. And I feel like I've really been in that waiting period lately. For the last 2 months, I've been spending a lot of time with God, my higher power, around like, what's the next move? What am I doing? Right. So I'm talking about moving down to Farmington, where the girlfriend lives, and just trying to figure that out. What am I going to do? Am I going to commute? Am I going to find another job? I had an interview down there, and they just never really got back to me, but there was long, and I didn't, because I just didn't really know what to do. Excuse me. And every time I took this to my higher power, to God, it was like, I just kept hearing like, wait, which I don't like that. I don't like that answer, right? I don't think that anybody likes that answer of wait, right? Even a no, right? I'm the type of person where like, even a no, just like, give me an answer. And so I'm in this period of wait, and that and I feel like I've been there, and that frustrates me. And I didn't realize the amount of frustration that I've really been carrying around with that. And it's definitely like a solid metaphor for like recovery, right? The hockey game, right? There's some parallels there for me, and it's that in this game on Saturday, right? And this is where like the frustration comes into play. It's like, in this game on Saturday, we did not lose because of me, right? I'm the goalie. I played really well. I kept us in the game. I did the things that I did. I'm seeing things that are going on with my team that are out of my control, because I'm not moving the puck up. I'm not shooting the puck. I'm not passing the puck, right? And so there's things that are out of my control, just like in life, right? There's things that are out of my control, but here I am doing the things that I need to do. I'm playing my position well, and then we lose, right? Same that I'm feeling in my life, right? I feel like I'm doing a really good job recently of staying connected, being of service, investing in my relationships, investing in my relationship with Beanie, and investing in my relationships with the guys that I'm working with, being of service, doing these things, right? Like this, okay, hey, right? They always tell you, I heard this one time, is that like, if you feel like you don't know where to go in life, there's 3 areas that you can invest in that will help things kind of fall into place. And that is, invest in yourself, your relationships, and your body. Now, I like to throw in higher power too, right? So like if I can invest in those areas, then everything else will fall into place, right? It kind of helps me keep me not so focused on the things that aren't happening, because I'm looking at the things that are happening and the things that I'm doing. However, I feel like I've kind of been in that space for some time now, and like realizing how frustrated I was with that, because I'm, again, in the hockey game and in life, right? I'm going, man, I'm doing all these things right. It's not my fault my life, I feel like it's not my fault my life's not moving along. I'm in this waiting period, right? I'm doing these things, and so I'm getting frustrated. So I realized just how frustrated I was with just, again, with where I am and where I'm not. And so, this all came out because I was on the phone with Jeff, and it was only about a 7-minute phone call, right? He had to go pretty quickly. It was a 7, and I got off that phone call going, oh wow, like I am really, I have really got some frustration and irritability right now around life and where I'm at. It's not the hockey game, and so I called Beanie, my partner, and I just said, "Hey, I just need you to listen to me real quick. I don't need any advice. I just need you to listen to me." And she did, and I was really able to get that off, and I felt better about it. So it's like, okay, now I see it. Right. So now I see it again. Don't want to beat myself up. Don't want to push anything. Because again, part of this, there's things that I can do. And then there's things that I'm waiting on from my higher power, God. Totally right. They say it a lot, right? This is on God's time, not my time. So, I can sit here and grind and push and push and push and push, again, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the boulder's going to move or that the car's going to move or anything like that. Now, I don't need to say, okay, well, I'm just not going to do anything, because that's not the right answer either, right? I got to find that balance in the middle of, okay, what actions can I take? And I'm going to continue to take those actions. Like investing in my connections, being of service, in my relationship with self, right? That's where I can invest. The connection, honesty, willingness, and spirituality, that's where I can invest, and everything else will kind of fall into place. Although sometimes it's hard to, stay in that spot. So fast forward a couple days, we've had some clients here at the center that, it was really cool. I got some, I get to share and pass along the message of sexual addiction. And regardless of what you think of it, I get people that more and more people lately that have been like, hey, man, I'd like to talk about this. And then I get to give them some literature. And so we just had a group of clients, and there was about 3 of them that was really cool. Like I really got to get close to these people and all kind of bond over sexual addiction and the recovery from that, and getting there to be there for people in a sense of fostering this connection. And so two of the guys got out, and they wanted to go to the newcomer meeting, the SCA newcomer meeting here in St. Louis. And I said, dude, I'll go with you. I'll take you guys. Let's go. And this was 2 days after this frustrating hockey game that I had, right? And so I meet up with them. We went to dinner. We went to the newcomer meeting, and it was just it was really powerful, man. It was really cool because, not only did I get to take those 2 guys, but I was also introduced recently to another guy on the outside from some more alumni who can relate and identify with the sexual compulsion, with sexual addiction. And he came to the meeting too. So, man, it was so cool. I got to go be 2 of the guys. It was their first meetings ever. And so it was really cool. I got to go to this newcomer meeting, and I got to bring these guys with me. And I remember being a newcomer sitting in this meeting, right? Or being a newcomer and sitting in my very first SAA meeting and just being a blubbering mess. I couldn't get through a share without crying, and, very unsure of what's going on, trying to scribble down all the numbers, because my very first SAA meeting was a Zoom meeting, trying to scribble down all the numbers real quickly, that the guys are sending me. And, so and to go from that to now fast forward, 4.5 years later, to be sitting in another newcomer meetings, not on fire, not so overwhelmed with just getting out of treatment. Hey guys, I just want to take a minute to share something deeply personal and transformative in my journey of recovery. I've been where you might be right now, struggling with the weight of addiction and feeling lost. But there's a place that offered me a new beginning, a place I truly believe in. It's called Begin Again Institute. At Begin Again, they understand the deep-rooted trauma behind addiction. Their 14-day intensive program for men tackles the neurobiological aspects of addiction head-on. It's not just about breaking a habit. It's about understanding and healing the underlying trauma that formed it in the first place. And for those who have been impacted by betrayal, Begin Again extends care to partners of addicts too. Their partner support program is offered at no additional cost to the family and runs alongside the men's intensive. This program helps participants gain an understanding of the trauma they've experienced and sets them on their own path to healing. If you or someone you love are grappling with sexual addiction, pornography addiction, or intimacy issues, Begin Again Institute can be that pivotal step towards recovery and a new lease on life. Remember, you can't go back and change the past, but it's never too late to begin again. To learn more about their life-changing program, visit beginagaininstitute.com or call 720-776-9076 to reserve your spot in the next 2-week intensive. I promise, it'll be the best call that you ever make for yourself. Stay strong, Keep fighting and keep tuning in to No Lions Here for more conversations about recovery, resilience, and hope. Is Patricia going to come back? Where's life going to take me, to like where I'm at now? Like it was really special. Very special to go back to that newcomers meeting and like sit there and again, not the very first meeting I ever went to. However, it was, one of the first meetings that I came to here in St. Louis. So I got to go to that meeting and it was really cool, man. Like, again, just the service aspect of recovery is amazing. If you get the opportunity to invest in the service aspect of this, which is so important, literally the 12 steps ends with, okay, go be of service. Now, anybody can be of service at any point in time. I'm a firm believer of that, right? You don't have to get to step 12 to go be of service, right? I'm not to step 12, technically. I'm on step 6, but I still get to go out and be of service. And I love, I don't care where you're at in your recovery, you can be of service. You have an experience to share. You absolutely do. Go be of service, right? Go call somebody and tell them how you're feeling. Model that. That's being of service. So, there's you get to be of service in so many different ways. And, I get to look at my journey and I believe that service is one person throughout this journey, right? If I can touch one person, not one person today, not one person tomorrow, not one person the next day, not one person yesterday, one person. One. If there's one person out there that can connect with what I'm saying and it helps them, that my job is done. One person in this journey, right? That's why I will always and want to always continue doing the podcast, is because one person. What if that one person's me? What if coming in here, setting this all up, processing and getting out how I'm doing, what I'm feeling, myself, hearing myself, I'm the one person that I'm helping by doing this recording and by putting this out there. My work's done, right? Now, obviously, ego comes into play and, I want to help everybody. And, I want to hear from the people I'm helping. But at the end of the day, right, if everything I've gone through, everything, I'm talking literally everything I've gone, helps one person, my job is done. I can hang my hat on that life. I can be content in that. Now, it takes some time to get to this point of saying I can be content in that, because I haven't always been able to say that, right? So keep that in mind. If everything that you are going through, past, present, and future, if God is putting you through that so that you can go and help somebody, well done. That's it. That's the magic. Helping other people. Especially with this thing, the sexual addiction. So much shame involved in it. So much guilt, so much shame, so much betrayal. There's a way through it. Go help somebody. Go be of service, man. Go make that phone call. So I left that meeting on Monday night. That Monday night, again, this was a few Mondays back. I felt really good. I felt so good. Just the feeling that it gave me. So I got yawn. Still not through my first cup of coffee for the day. It's my day off, and I got to get some sleep in this morning. And it felt good, but I'm ready to crawl back into bed. So I'm driving home from this meeting, and driving is one of those me times for me where like I get to either listen to my music, dance, and sing, or I spend time with my higher power. I act like. Here's the other thing, too, is like something I want to reflect on. Like early on in recovery, I met a guy who was a pastor, and he was more of like a new age pastor. Had a bunch of tattoos and like just younger guy. And he was, shout out to Mike, man. Really grateful. I'm going to shoot him a text later. He taught me, that relationship kind of fizzled. He taught me how to talk to God. He taught me how to talk to my higher power, right? Regardless of what your higher power is, it's that conversation piece, right? So on this drive home that Monday night, I acted like my higher power God was sitting in the passenger seat next to me, and I was just having a conversation, right? Just talking like a best friend. Honestly, that was some great advice that I got early on, is like, Talk to your higher power, talk to God like you're just a friend, right? We don't have to do this, oh, Holy Father. We don't have to do that. It's just it's a conversation. Now, a lot of times it's going to feel like it's a one-way conversation for sure. However, like, just know that like your higher power is listening. Whatever your higher power is, like your higher power is listening. God is listening. Always. Again, remember the yes, no, wait. So I'm driving home. I'm feeling good, and I'm having this conversation with God. And I'm saying, God, again, I've still got this kind of, all right, I'm frustrated. What does that mean? What does that look like? What do I need to do? Kind of rolling around in my head, mixed with this euphoria of like being of service, right? Going to this meeting, felt good. So most of my recovery, I've always been afraid that I'm missing something, right? That I'm not doing enough. I'm missing something. I'm missing a sign. I'm not doing enough work. That's why things aren't working out. That's why I'm not getting the answers that I'm looking for. I'm not, I'm missing things because of who I am, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not doing enough, right? I'm not investing enough into these areas to where I'm just missing everything. Now, what was significant about this conversation with my higher power was I don't feel like that. I said that too. I said, God, I am grateful for this. I don't feel like I'm missing it. Now, that is very significant for me, considering that my tape is I'm not enough and that I'm not doing enough. Those are my tapes. So very significant for me to say, God, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I feel like I'm doing enough. I feel like I'm doing enough. I actually feel like I'm doing more than enough. If I'm being honest, it feels good. It feels good to say that out loud, especially on here and to hear myself say it, because that is very important to me. Very important, very significant, right? We talk about measurable growth a lot, right? I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to feel it, right? For me, that is measurable growth right there. I feel like I'm doing enough. I know that I'm doing enough. I know that I am. My life is full. I know that I'm doing enough. I'm not missing anything. So I said, God, I'm not missing anything. I know that. And that feels good. But I did say, God, I need you to smack me in the face with this thing. What do I do? Right? Because again, I'm thinking about leaving the job. Moving. Hour and a half away. Starting over. Not starting over, but kind of starting over though, actually. That's scary. Very scary. Very, very scary. And I just want to do it. I want to get it right. I want to get it right. I'm so afraid I'm not going to get it right. I'm so afraid I'm not going to get it right. I haven't said that. I have not said that out loud. I didn't know that was in there. I'm so afraid that I'm not going to get it right. I'm so afraid that I'm not going to get it right. So afraid I'm not going to get that right. So I said, there is some fear there that I've not been in touch with until just now. I'm grateful that I'm seeing it, though. I'm grateful. I accept that fear. Yeah, it's okay. I accept that fear. So grateful I got in touch with that. That's there. I didn't have to dig too deep for that one either. So afraid I'm not going to get it right. Thanks for being here with me, you all. Thanks for being here with me. Thanks for listening to me on this. Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry for sniffling into your ear. Sorry. Oof. That's a heavy one, though. That's a heavy one. Okay. All right. That's there. All right. Didn't necessarily know that was there, but yeah, I'm afraid. Again, I knew the fear was there, but I did not know that there was that tape behind that fear. Did not know that there was that tape behind that fear. Okay, I'm going to explore that a little bit. With my peoples. I'm going to explore that a little bit with my people, man. I'm going to go to a meeting tonight. I'm going to a meeting tonight, so I'm excited about that. Yeah. So, I'm in the car, I'm telling God, I need you to smack me in the face with this thing. Smack me in the face with it, God. I'm ready. Because I'm not. Here's, for the last couple months when I've been kind of praying about, all right, what's the next move, around moving. And I literally, like, in my head, which this is not the first time that, like, I've gotten these things, that I've heard these things. And I just heard, wait. Now I'm not really hearing that, right? I'm not necessarily hearing that. So I'm like, okay, all right, God, but again, God, I'm asking you for something here, man. Like, I need you to smack me in the face. This is how I see it, right? I need a spiritual 2x4 to smack me in the head, right? So I said, God, I need you to smack me in the face with this thing. Smack me in the face with it. So get home, go to bed, and I'm at work the next day, and definitely, the frustrations were kind of bubbling up again. I had some conversations with some of my bosses at work around some advancement opportunities here, and it just kind of like hadn't heard anything back, and it was very frustrating, and this was adding to it. Because I had felt minimized in those conversations, and they weren't closing the loop, they weren't circling back. So like that's adding to it. That's kind of where I'm not going to go into the details of that, but that was adding to the frustration, the discouragement, the disappointment. That was adding to all of it. And so I called Beanie. She had the day off. I called her because I needed a vent, and I was like, man, I'm funky. I'm frustrated. Babe, I don't know what to do. And she said, Alex, can I, and she's so sweet. She said, Alex, can I, this is a good cry. This is a good cry. I'm so grateful for her. She's so beautiful. Such a beautiful person. She said, Alex, can I share what I think you should do? I said, yeah, I'm all ears. There was a little reservation inside of me though, like a little bit of like, oh, I don't know, I don't know. Or there was, I'll be honest, like there was some reservation there for sure. So she said, Alex, I really think that you need to go to your parents, ask for a personal loan to help get you out from underneath these high interest credit cards. They can't seem to, this is something that I've struggled with for probably about 10 years or so, just getting stuck under these, not knowing, getting these credit cards and thinking, free money, never really being taught kind of how to go about these, and just, and just racking them up. And then not making enough money to like being able to make a dent in them. And it definitely holds me back financially. And she said, go to your parents, ask for a personal loan, one that you'll pay back with interest. It's not 29.9% interest, because that's where they get you. And then she said, see if they'll help you out. If they will, come on down to Farmington, get a part-time job. And she said, focus on building back up the podcast and building your coaching business. And I said, I don't hate that idea. I actually really like that idea, right? Because one of the goals before her and I even met, one of the goals that I have, right, is to the podcast, continue to work the podcast, continue to push the podcast, do the podcast, right? And work for myself. To have my own coaching business, and it never came across me that that I could work part-time. Now, with the debt that I have, the bills are a little too high for me to work part-time right now. But that's where like the help from maybe my parents comes into play. I said, man, I think that there's something to that, babe. I really do think that. And I just never thought that like part-time would be an option. But if I think about it, right, one of the reasons why my capacity is so low for the podcast right now and trying to get this business off the ground is, the work that I do working in the treatment center, it's very mentally and emotionally draining. Mentally and emotionally, I don't have the capacity to put the effort that I really want to put. I really want to put effort into the podcast and this coaching business. I want to push these things. I want to put the work in. I want to get back to working it. And I don't have that right now, working full time, especially working full time in the recovery industry. Something that I've noticed for me is that like I have a gift of, I make people feel very comfortable with me, and people share things with me that are very heavy. Like last week, man, I had 3 people come to me. Alex, I need to share some things with you that I've never shared with anybody before. Now I don't want to put I won't even go there. Like I was going to say, I don't want to put us like, I don't want to compare, right? But if you have something that you need to talk about that is something you've never talked about or something you've been so afraid to talk about, who am I to judge where that ranks, right, on the scale of 1 to 10, right? So like I had these people come to me and say, Alex, I got these things I need to share with you. Now they're typically pretty heavy things, right? If I'm saying, hey, I'm never going to share these things, which that's me. I was in that boat at one point in time. I'm going to take these things to my grave. And I knew how heavy those things were to me, right? So regardless of what it actually is, that's heavy. It's a weight, right? So here I am, creating and fostering an environment for individuals to say, I need help carrying this weight, and I'm going to give you some of this weight. All right. And I'm saying, hey, I'm here to help you carry that weight. However, at the end of the day, like it's very heavy stuff. Very, very heavy emotionally and mentally. Because, I can't it's not just okay, hey, thanks for sharing. Go on and get out of here now. Right? You got to process it and sit with them in it. And it can be very, very heavy work. And I don't think I give it enough credit. Of course, I don't have the capacity right now, but going and getting a part-time job at a Lowe's or, and there's some other options. I got some options that I need to explore because I could still absolutely try to work part-time in the recovery industry. And again, this is all like really still kind of new. Actually, after I get done recording this episode, I'm going to go meet with my parents. That's like the first piece of this puzzle is I got to sit down with my parents and just even see if they're even willing or able to help me. Because I don't know, right? I have no idea. I really don't want to go into with any expectations. I kind of hinted, I kind of told my mom a little bit about what was going on the other day. And, she was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll talk. So like, I don't know, but this is okay. Right. So we're talking about actions, right? Let me take some actions. God's not just going to say, okay, Alex, here's a check. There's got to be some actions that I need to take. So I'm going to take these actions. I see the actions that I'm going to take. So I'm going to take them. So literally whenever I get done here, I'm going to go meet up with my parents. I'm going to go have lunch with my mom and my dad. And actually, I haven't sat down and had lunch with them in a while. So I'm actually kind of like looking forward to this sit down. So I'm going to go have this conversation. That's the first piece of this puzzle, right? Before I get too far ahead of myself and start trying to figure out what job let me just make sure that let me just see where they're at. Maybe they can't help me. Maybe I got to figure out a different way. I'm struggling to do it on my own because I've done the things where I've applied for the credit cards to transfer balances to get the 0% for 15 months and then transfer it again. I got denied. I went and applied for a personal loan from my bank. Got denied. My debt to income ratio is too high. I've got good credit, but my debt to income ratio is just too high. And I don't make a lot of money. So I need I'm looking for some outside help. And so I'm going to take that. So I'm going to go take some actions around that. And, then that's going to help me determine, how I move forward. And, I was talking to, Beanie and I were talking recently and, we haven't set a date. Up until now, we hadn't set a date on like, okay, hey, this is when I'm going to be moving down. It's just kind of like, okay, this is the plan. This is the plan. This is the plan. But there's really been no talks. Now, I'll be honest, fear is what's held me back 100%. Sharing with you guys a little earlier in this episode of like, I'm afraid that I'm afraid I'm going to mess this up. I'm afraid that I'm not going to do this right. Well, recently, literally, this has just been in the last couple of days, she came to me and she said, hey, Alex, like, I know we haven't really put a time on this. I'd kind of like to, though. She's in school right now. She's in school. Well, she gets a winter break in December and it's September. And she said, well, what if we shoot for like the middle of December? I said, you know what? I like that. Let's do that. Let's shoot for the middle of December. And that's what I'm planning on moving down. I can commit to that. Okay. Now I got to realize that God's involved. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm luckily though, like the fear isn't too high bubbling on the surface, It's there. However, I also know that like things are trending in this way. So it's like, okay, God, I trust it. Like, I'm going to take these actions. And God, I'm going to trust it that you're going to help provide for me and that you're going to help me on the other side of these actions. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's not God taking these actions for me. Anything that I can do for myself, God's going to allow me to do it for myself. Now, there's absolutely things that God is going to do for me that I cannot do for myself, right? And I know that. However, also on the other side of that coin is God's not going to do anything for me that I can't do for myself. So there's this kind of a give and take in that relationship, and I'm so grateful for my relationship with God, my higher power. So okay, so that does gives me some time to figure some things out. Whether that okay, some part-time work. Trying to figure that out between now and then. This gives me some time to kind of figure some things out, and I'm excited for it. Honestly, like I'm excited for it. Let's see where this goes, right? Like, buckle up. Throughout all of this, yeah, I've had some urges. This was really interesting. So what I love about recovery is throughout this 43 minutes that I've been talking at this point, I'm not discussing, I'm sharing my life, right? Because I believe that this is what recovery looks like, sharing everything. The things that I'm working through, the things that I'm doing, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the only thing I talk about in recovery or when I have urges or when I want to act out, when I want to use. If that was the only time that I was talking recovery when those things were happening, I wouldn't be talking recovery a whole lot. Like, you got to talk about everything. Talk about everything. If it evokes an emotional reaction within inside of you, talk about it. There's nothing too big or too small. Right? Early on in recovery, the things that I'm talking about now, my brain would tell me it was dumb to talk about. Now my brain's telling me I got to talk about it. So talk about it, right? Now there have been urges, sure, absolutely, right? I had this. I got a new phone recently, and I was impatient with the switching over process, right? I went to the phone store. I was playing hard. I was like, how long is this going to take for y'all to switch over my stuff? And they're like, about an hour. And I said, I don't got that time. I'll just sign into my iCloud and I'll sync everything up through the cloud. And they were like, okay. So my numbers didn't sync up. Like, I had to resave people's numbers that I've had for years and whatever. So, this was literally like, so the span of the 3 days, right? Losing the hockey game, the frustration. And then fast forward to, that was on a Saturday. And then Monday was a newcomers meeting. Sunday, I get this text. Hey, how are you? Now, it's from a number that I don't have saved. Now, the alarm bells don't go off because I know that I'm having to resave numbers that I've had for years. Right? I had to resave Jeff's number. I had to resave Beanie's number. Okay. So it's not out of the ordinary for me to get a text from a number that I don't really know that's program related, right? I give my number out a lot to guys when they leave, program related. Now, so I'm like, okay, let me respond to this text real quick. Like, hey, I'm doing well. Sorry, I actually wasn't lying this time. Hey, I got a new phone, trying to play catch up. I don't have all my contacts. Who is this? This person then sends me some pictures that they weren't provocative. They weren't risky. It was simply this person was showing me who they were. And it was a trans woman escort that I had actually tried dating this person back in my recovery. This was a couple years ago. And now this person reached out. And, the thoughts, man, the thoughts came. The thoughts came, and I truly don't believe that this person was reaching out to me like for like nefarious reasons necessarily. I don't really believe that, and they said, hey, this is, so-and-so, sorry if you didn't want to hear from me, I'm sorry for bothering you. And like, I was really in this crossroads of like, okay, what do I do here? First and foremost, the thoughts were, well, I'm going to go give this a ride for the night. I can go do that. That was one of the first thoughts that popped up, but that's typically my first thought is usually wrong. My second thought is usually wrong. So I'm thinking right now, part of me is like, in some of the conversations that I've had with Beanie, because I knew that I was going to share this with her. I've shared it with her in the past when people have reached out. And, she's asked me like, well, why didn't you set up a boundary? Why didn't you? Well, a lot of the times when I get these texts, I know who it is. I know it's somebody I wanted to engage with, so I'm just not even going to respond. Now, this was a little bit of a different situation, right? Because I had already engaged. Now, also too, like I went on some dates with this person. I did enjoy this person's company, regardless of the physical intimacy there. And, I wanted to be the nice guy. I want to, but I did want to, the thought was of putting up this boundary of, hey, thanks for reaching out. I'm going to keep this brief because I do have a girlfriend. I hope you are well. And I was like, man, what's wrong with it? Can I do that? Right. Is that me? I said, I don't know. Right. So called Jeff. I was talking to Jeff about it, and he was like, well, Alex, he asked me this question. He said, what would a healthy person do? Well, Jeff, off the top of my head, I don't know because I'm not necessarily a healthy person. But, I was like, that's a valid point, right? Like, I believe a healthy person can engage, put up a boundary, and then leave it at that, right? And not wait a couple days and then reach out of neediness or when a time of neediness comes around. Excuse me. Not engage with this person. And I'm like, man, and Jeff was like, so what, I said, well, I got to share this with Beanie, and I don't, and he's like, well, why don't you ask her what you should do? Bring her into this. And I was like, that's kind of scary, man. I don't know if I like that idea. And so I sat on it. I sat on it for the day, and I was like, okay, I don't know. So I'm driving home. I almost texted it to her, but I was like, no, I'm going to call her. I'm going to call her and tell her about this. So I called her. Now, this is how I was going to set it up. I was going to set it up and say, hey, this person reached out to me. I did respond back to them saying I had a girlfriend. And it was one of those, I was almost going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Now, I wanted to make sure and be careful that, did I want to respond to this person to keep some kind of door open? And the answer to that is no, not necessarily. But I also, I erred on the side of, well, Alex, I didn't actually send that text, so I want to be truthful here. So I just told her, I said, hey, this person reached out. I did engage because I did ask who it was. I didn't know who it was, legitimately didn't know who it was. She was like, well, first off, she's like, geez, Alex, when are they going to stop? And I laughed, and we laughed. I was like, it really has been a while. And this person, she knew who it was. Cause again, we've had these conversations before. Oh, okay. Yeah. That person's reaching out. So she said, I said, what would you, I said, I kind of wanted to respond and put up this boundary, but I don't know, how would you like me to go about this? And she said, I'd like it if you'd respond with a boundary. And I said, okay, you know what? I can do that. I can definitely do that. And she said, okay, let me know how it goes. I said, okay, I will. And I said, okay, maybe I won't do it tonight. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. But two, there's this finality in reaching out and setting up this boundary that it was like closing the door. And I'm an addict. I'm not a big fan of closing doors. I always want things in the back of my pocket, but however, at the same time, I can't be carrying that around with me. I don't want to carry that around with me. I don't want to do that. And so I didn't. I'm laying in bed, and Beanie texts me. She's like, hey, did you reach out to that woman? And I was like, I feel rushed now. I feel like this is on your time, not my time. I didn't say this to her, but in my head, I'm thinking, no, this is on your time, not my time. And I said, you know what, Alex, you told her you were going to do it. She's checking in with you. She said she asked for the follow-up. Let's do it. So I sent the text, and the text said, hey, thanks for reaching out. I do have a girlfriend right now, so I'm going to keep this brief. Hope all is well. Popped off the text, deleted the thread, and that was it. Then I texted Beanie back, said, hey, I did it. All good. So yeah. And so being able to do that and then leave it and put it down and not pick it back up, not revisit it, I was able to do that. Felt really good about, okay, cool. Boom. Done. And it was cool too, because in that there was more trust that was, it's not lost on me that there was trust that was gained in that interaction with her, right? And the cool thing was, I talk a lot about like wanting my partner to be involved in my recovery, and that to me is kind of what that looks like a little bit, right? Bringing her in and letting her be involved in my recovery. So like that was brought in some more trust. So yeah, that was cool. So yeah, so that's kind of what's been like, I don't know, been going on with me lately. I've been focusing on doing the things that I need to do for myself and for the people around me, and also too, Art. I feel like I'm in a I'm in a spot of action right now. Okay, sometimes the only actions we need to take are actions around my relationship with my higher power, my relationships with others, my relationship with self, and my body, right? Taking care of those things. So now I feel like there's some outward actions that I can take around my life, and I'm going to take those actions. And it starts, with, again, when I get off here, I'm gonna go have lunch with my parents, and we'll see how that goes. But it feels good to be in a spot where I'm taking some actions and trying to figure some things out, and also, having my people be involved in all that. So I'll definitely keep y'all posted. So thanks so much for joining me on this journey, though. I just, it means so much to me. Thank you so much for joining me. It means, again, I'll say it again, it means a lot to me. As always, definitely, go check out Begin Again Institute. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, like and subscribe. If there's any topics that you'd like for me that you want to hear me discuss, please reach out, nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, that is nolionshere@gmail.com. I love hearing from my fans. I love hearing from my listeners. So please feel free to reach out, and forgive me if I don't get back to you right away. But again, thank you all so much for joining me on my journey. And as always, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you're worth it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.